Hi everyone, welcome to this video on the second lesson in our Year 7 reproduction scheme. I'm not going to do any drawings under the visualizer in this video. I'm literally just going to talk through how I would go through explaining it, because actually I think this is one of those lessons where maybe drawing under a visualizer isn't the best way of doing it. I think to use PowerPoint slides or to have some sort of printed copy of these diagrams is absolutely fine. All I would say is that, this lesson seems quite straightforward. We just need students to know, firstly, what are the different parts of the reproductive system called? Secondly, what are the functions of each of those parts? And it's very easy to kind of teach that lesson in that way. It's just information transmission. What's important though, and what I would stress from at the point of view of our science curriculum and the broader principles that we are trying to adopt in the curriculum, is that we always bring everything back to these kind of core ideas. So firstly, the big idea that we talked about in the previous video on sexual reproduction is fertilization. And the way I would frame this to students is to come back to what we talked about in the previous lesson, and this idea that actually to form a new organism, we need to get one sex cell, the sperm from the male, and a sex cell from the female, the egg cell, and they need to somehow join and fuse. And if you frame it in that way, and then you know all of the different things that you're going through in the reproductive systems, you're saying, think about why we might have these features and how are they going to help fertilization. That is going to build a more coherent kind of scheme, conceptual scheme, or a schema as it's sometimes called, in students' minds than if we're just giving them a load of facts and telling them, right, you just need to remember it. So if you frame everything in terms of fertilization, and again, if you want to take it even further back, the other thing you could say is, if you think about what biology is as a subject, it's helpful to say, look, we can find out all of these parts and anatomy and the dissection of human beings and studying all of the different parts that we can find. That can tell us everything that exists inside the body. But what we are doing as biologists is not just saying, okay, here's a bit, I'm going to give it a name. It's understanding how humans might have evolved, and that's a word we'll come to obviously later in the curriculum, but ultimately we want to understand as biologists not just what are these things called, but why might human beings have these things. And again, that's where if you come back and frame it in terms of the big idea of fertilization, students are going to be able to make a lot more sense of it and have this broader sense of what it is that biologists are trying to achieve. So really, it's a very straightforward lesson. If you just go through the slides, talk through the different parts of each reproductive system and the function of each part. Obviously, for those of you who haven't taught this before, this can be a bit of an uncomfortable lesson in a way. But I think if you frame it in very biological terms and say, look, what biologists want to do is we want to understand, okay, we've got all of these parts. Let's ignore all the social aspects of, private parts that are a bit rude or whatever, and let's just look at it as scientists and why might we have them. Actually, if you just go through it in that sense and are very open about it, then in my experience, students tend to engage with this in a very mature way. Yeah, if you're teaching this for the first time, please don't worry about it. And yeah, the big message that I would pass on is just frame it in terms of fertilization, because that is the concept that we want to build all the way through this scheme of work. In the next lesson, we will be talking about puberty.